Welcome to the CoLab podcast series, brought to you by 𝗽cie𝗱𝗰, a law firm with an exclusive focus on entrepreneurship. In this podcast, we take you behind the scenes with some of today's most driven entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and innovators. We hope these conversations will not only inform but also inspire you on your own journey in business. Let's dive into today's episode.
Okay, so welcome for another episode of CoLab by 𝗽cie𝗱𝗰𝘀𝘀. Today we have Jonathan Bovijn from TechWolf. My name is Steven Daems. I'm a partner at 𝗽cie𝗱𝗀𝘀. TechWolf has been a long-time client of our firm, one of the more inspiring and aspiring companies in the global AI scene at the moment. Recently had a very successful capital round in July 2024. Jonathan, very successful round, and you have now offices in Belgium, in London, and now very recently you have offices in New York, and you are the person that is leading the New York office. So maybe from me to you, Jonathan, a very warm welcome to you on this podcast, and perhaps first introductions are in order. So tell us something about yourself and something about the mission of TechWolf.
Yes, so I'm Jonathan. Currently country launch manager at TechWolf here in the US. Before this role, I was heading the finance team for I think almost 3.5 years now for TechWolf, and by being the head of finance, also working closely, of course, with the 𝗽cie𝗱𝗰𝘀𝘀 team on different funding rounds. Before TechWolf, I worked at Team Leader, where also I had first experience with 𝗽cie𝗱𝗀 back in the day. What do you need to know about me? I really like to work in a high growth environment like TechWolf. Next to that, I love cycling and I love my dog. So that's me. Maybe about TechWolf. So I hope most of you already know what we do, but we help large organizations to get a better understanding of their skills of the workforce. We see that a lot of companies, and especially like the HR departments in those companies, really struggle with getting to understand their workforce. HR has been struggling for decades to make data-driven decisions. Where, for example, me as a finance person, I have my P&L, my balance sheet, my metric. HR doesn't really have a lot of data to really make data-driven decisions on. And that's where skills come in. So a lot of people within HR are now looking at skills as, you can call it, the currency of work, to help them make better data-driven decisions. And that's what we do for our customers. So we help large organizations to better understand the skills of their workforce.
Yeah, and what I think is really cool, Jonathan, is that you actually use AI. So you really are looking into the organization and see what people have certain skills or should learn certain skills, or even should for the future and going forward, it would be beneficial for the company to have this or that skill. So that's really what sets you apart, obviously, from your competitors, and which is something I think is really, really cool. A little frightening as well, if I may, because the technology goes so fast this day. But is there any? Can you give some wording or some clarification on how TechWolf is actually using the AI to transform talent management for companies?
Yeah, so we use existing data from our customers to infer skills on. So basically, we look at different HR systems and business systems where we infer data from, and the output, and maybe a small correction, we don't assess the talent right now. It's not that TechWolf is used for performance management or anything like that. That would be like the big broader thing to do with AI in talent management. But what we do is we just provide skill data, and from skill data, there you can unlock a lot of different use cases. The two examples we see most often right now are in internal mobility and in strategic workforce planning. Let me start with the second one, strategic workforce planning. So we work for a lot of large organizations in transformation. Think of banking with the whole digitalization. Think of automotive with the whole EV story. But also think of big energy players where there is a lot of transformation going on. And these companies, they employ tens of thousands of employees, and they need to shift their whole industry and their whole being as an organization to the new reality, but they have no clue how to transform their workforce. For example, we work for a big oil company. They need to be carbon neutral by 2050. And they don't have a clue how to transform their workforce from an old business to offshore wind, for example. How are they going to make that transition? A lot of these things start with understanding the skills of their workforce today, and then being able to map out what are the gaps we see and we will the skills we will need in the future, and to start acting on that. Because once you know what skills you have today, you also know where the gaps are, and you can try to fill those gaps by, for example, upskilling. And then again, get into the first bucket of internal mobility. A lot of organizations, they struggle with finding talent in the market, and they struggle with high retention in their team. So a lot of people who are leaving the organization because they don't see enough opportunity inside the organization. That's why a lot of organizations are now investing in internal mobility platforms where you can see it as a job site within your own company. And we help those job sites or those internal mobility platforms to work better, because we can, by having skilled data in those platforms, they can better map potential opportunities for employees within the company based on the skills you have. We see it at a lot of companies that work is getting more agile, and they're stepping away of like the typical way of a job and the job content, and you stick within one job or one department, but you move towards a more agile way of working, and that's where skill can be a big added value.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great. Thanks. Maybe another question, Jonathan, because obviously now everyone's talking about AI. AI is everywhere, but I can assume when TechWolf was starting initially that clients were skeptical about using AI, or because it's a long way from the traditional process, and where you try to find talent on more soft skill based. Did you encounter some challenges in convincing clients into using AI for HR processes?
Yeah, definitely. And there are still a lot of challenges. I think the biggest one that pops to mind is, of course, the whole privacy story around using AI in HR, which, of course, gets more and more actual with, for example, the AI Act right now. But in practice, it's a bridge that we really are able to cross. For us, security and privacy are, as of the start of TechWolf, very important. So on the privacy and the AI piece, TechWolf is not a black box solution. So TechWolf is not a solution like OpenAI, where you like give a prompt and something comes out, but you don't know how it gets there. We are able to really identify if we, for example, give you a certain skill, we are able to explain why we give that skill to you based on which data point or which data points we infer the skill, which really enables a lot of transparency in the AI. Next to that, it's also very important that we are here to serve the employees, and employees will benefit from their company having skilled data on them, because it's in the best interest of the employee. The examples I gave around strategic workforce planning, but especially on internal mobility, upskilling and reskilling of employees, are in the best interest of those employees.
Yeah, and I can imagine that that's a question to you, Jonathan, because and I'm really curious about the answer. But in Europe, we are quite protective of our privacy and other rights, obviously. But the US, it's a different market, and they have very different views on the usage of AI. For instance, I recently there's the new iPhone came out, and I did not know, but apparently there's a whole AI part that's being used and actually marketed in the US, but it's not for now. It's not allowed in Europe due to the regulations we have in place. So is that one of the reasons that you went to the US, or is there a big difference between US and Europe?
Yeah, there's definitely a big difference between the US and Europe. I would say like the whole GDPR concept is of course a European thing. In the US, it doesn't live that much, but that doesn't mean that companies are using personal data for whatever. Especially like we work for the global organizations, the Fortune 500 in the US. They do care about security and privacy. If you work for big banks here in the US, then there is a lot of work on the security and privacy piece. But there are a lot of differences. What we, for example, struggle with in Europe, or challenges we have, is worker councils. It's not that they don't allow to use TechWolf, it just delays the sales cycle. So from a commercial point of view, it just takes longer to sell into European accounts compared to the US. It's not that the conversion rates or like we are not able to sell in those European companies. It just goes a bit slower because of all the regulations that come with it. And especially with all new regulations that we have now, it will increase. But we're quite confident that we will be able to sell into large organizations in Europe as well. The difference with the US is, and the reason why we're here is the US is the biggest market for enterprise software. If we as a company want to succeed in becoming a generational SaaS company, we need to succeed in the US because we are enterprise software. And here in the US, there is more maturity within HR and within software in general, which makes it easier to sell into.
Yeah, do you think you have like a head start because you're European based, but now you're coming into, let's say, a less regulated market in the US? Do you think that gives you an advantage?
Yeah, definitely. Because first of all, we don't only work for US employees, we work for global employees around the world, and every country has its own regulation. If you look at Japan or different countries in Asia, they have totally different regulations around privacy than in Europe, but definitely than in the US. So it's an added value for us to be able to already have a strong backbone and to be used to a lot of regulation going into new markets.
Yeah, because it's an there's an ethics discussion to it as well, and I think the discussion is more there's a more bigger debate in Europe than I think than there is in the US and in other parts of the world. Is that something that TechWolf is looking at? So how do you address these concerns on to make sure that although you're using AI, that concepts like fairness and transparency, that they are secured in the application itself?
Yeah, and our team, and we have a specific AI team within the company, is really focused on those kind of things to making sure that we are have competitive edge over all our competitors, but also in the AI world that we are at the forefront, and we are doing a lot of work on, for example, bias. I think it's here in New York that there is a regulation that our customers can ask us to do an audit on the bias of our AI. Those are things that we started working on years ago to make sure that our AI is unbiased, because for us, it's also super important. Like the vision of TechWolf is to make people flourish at work, and it's about the employee. It's not about the company. We want all the people in the world to flourish at their jobs and in work. We don't want them to be assessed and performance assessed only by AI. It's the skill piece is a missing piece in the puzzle to better manage your workforce, but it's not the end.
It's a tool.
It's a tool.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
and from your experience, although short-lived for the moment, but which way do you think we are going? Over-regulated in Europe or less regulated? What would be the way forward?
Yeah, it's I try not to worry too much about regulation. I think for us as a company, we see it as it is what it is, and we try to find our way around it, and to make it even like a competitive advantage that we are in line with the regulation. We are investing heavily in making sure that we are at the the front foot of these regulations, so we can use them in our business. And next to that, we also try to influence, of course, a bit regulation. And we try to have a voice in the AI world, especially here in Belgium.
Yeah, yeah. So we've been talking about what you do, but maybe for the people that are listening, so we've kind of laid out what TechWolf does and the usage of AI. Can you maybe give an example of a company that you really helped shape their HR structure?
Yeah, I think to continue on the example I was giving earlier, on the energy player. So they're shifting from oil to renewables, and they are opening up a new department of around 5,000 people in offshore wind, but they don't have a clue which skills they will need in this new department. And on the other hand, they know that 20, 30 years from now, all their employees that are currently working in oil, or a big part of those employees, will need to do a different job. How to start preparing for that, how to make sure that like it's impossible to let go of all these people and hire 50, 100,000 new people. That's not possible. So you need to do it with the people you have in the team, and making sure you can upskill and identify the wins there.
Yeah, and so for these people working there and people joining those kind of firms, what key skills do you think they will need to thrive in an AI driven workforce in the future?
Yeah, that's a very broad question. I think, and we were yesterday on an event here in New York with a lot of HR leaders. They received a similar question, and of course, the soft skills will be even more important, because a lot of expertise and like hard skills or knowledge will be easier accessible with AI. If you already see today how much is possible with tools like 𝗽cije_𝗰𝘀𝘁, which I also use often, and probably you as a lawyer, you also use AI, which makes your life way easier. So being an expert in a specific domain will become, I wouldn't say harder, but the knowledge will be easier accessible through AI. So all the soft skills around your job that you need to be able to be successful will be even more important.
Yeah, so really selling yourself as someone who can deliver these soft skills using AI.
Yeah, and I think selling, of course, I hope not everybody will need to be able to sell, because I think some people are way better at it than others, but also on decision making, on team management, on all those kind of soft skills will be even more important than they are today.
Yeah, and how do you think that the AI shaping will shape the future of work and talent management in the coming years?
Yeah, there is a lot going on, but you really need to make a distinction between the hype, which is AI, and the reality. For example, if you look at skills, the AI can enable a lot, and gives HR organizations now real data to work with. And it's different for them to be able to go to their CFO or to their executive team with hard data on why they would need to invest in learning and development or something else, compared to in the past where they were not really able to prove that with data. But on the other hand, we also see a lot of organizations now jumping on the AI without really having a clue what they want to get out of it. We also had it with some customers that bought TechWolf in the past because they wanted to do something with AI and HR, but they don't have a clue what they want to do. So that's very hard to be successful. For them, it's very hard to be successful because the customer doesn't even know what they want to do with it. So I think the AI piece is definitely, there is a big hype piece to it as well, but it will enable a lot in terms of more data, easier work, and it will span across different fields.
Yeah, because that was you touched upon something that I wanted to ask earlier as well, because you said we work for large companies, so obviously very big corporates, tens of thousands of people, but and you touched upon it right now. Is there are there companies that are interested in saying, okay, we're using TechWolf, but they're not, let's say, not mature enough or not they haven't matured enough?
Yeah, definitely. So we, if you look at TechWolf, we are a data solution, but the data as such isn't creating value. It's what you do with the data that is creating value. If you don't have the resources internally or the maturity internally to work with data, then you can have all the data you want, but you won't be driving impact. So what we see that there are more and more organizations and HR teams heavily investing in people analytics, in teams that are specialized and are used to working with data, because especially HR, they're not used to it themselves. And maybe I'm stereotyping now a bit, but HR as a department is not used to working with a lot of data. So it's hard, it's new to them, and they need to learn how to do it. And they are investing in it, but it's still new. So providing them with data without them having the maturity to really work with it is a real challenge that we see in the market.
Yeah, and do you think like TechWolf can be going forward, can be integrated in every company, small companies, or do you really need like the big volume to have enough data?
I think for TechWolf, I try to see it myself, and I'm not too deep into the product, or for my finance background, also not too deep in the weeds with our customers. But as long as you as an organization can or know all the people in your company, then you don't need it. Like, for example, if you have a company of 200-300 people, the management team, hopefully they know all the people in their organization and they have quite a good view on who can do what. The big challenge is where we start as of companies of 3,000 employees, up to the biggest one now has 300,000 employees worldwide. That's the big challenge, to do that at scale. The moment you don't have, or you can't put all the people in a room who know all the people in the organization, that's where TechWolf really comes in. Of course, over time, it will be something that smaller organizations and maybe even SMBs in Belgium will be able to use. But I think right now it's biggest value for these larger organizations.
Okay, so and now you've opened offices in New York, which is for many technology companies in Belgium, let's say a dream come true, or at least something to aspire. Do you have any pointers for your fellow entrepreneurs on doing business abroad, specifically the US, New York, or?
Yeah, so for us, going to the US was a very deliberate decision, but a decision that we also very consciously postponed a bit, not postponing the decision, but moving to the US itself, because we wanted to first be successful in Europe and to go to the US with existing proof points from Europe, but also already some logos in the US. Last year we signed 5 new logos in the US, which really gives us something to go to market with existing examples, instead of being the new kids on the block without any proof points here in the US, because then it's very difficult to really get into those large organizations if you don't have any proof points yet. Next to that, for us, it was also very important from a culture perspective to be able to do this with enough people and moving For example, now we're moving with 5 people from Belgium to New York. We have one more joining us beginning of next year, to really incorporate the TechWolf values and the TechWolf culture here in our New York office as well. Because a lot of organizations are going to the US in a more opportunistic way, where the market is there and they want to grasp it as soon as possible, or to want to take it as soon as possible. And therefore they make opportunistic choices. For example, you meet a startup person and you decide to hire that person because he's very smart and like he's a really good guy or girl. But they don't really know the company or the product that well. And they start to build out a company next to the existing company in Europe. And that's something that we deliberately did not want. And therefore, we're bringing and investing a lot in bringing these people to New York, and then hiring people here to attack the market.
Yeah, I think that's pretty smart, and that's a big move for yourself as well, Jonathan. So, is that something that you imagined for yourself when you started working, when you started your career? Was it always the international aspect that drew you to?
To be honest, not really. Like, I really like the high growth environment, and I always thought I would work for a couple of years in London or Paris, or like a bit closer to Belgium than I am today. But of course, when the question was asked to Andreas, our CEO, asked me if I wanted to move to New York, my immediate reaction was, yes, let's go. It's a huge opportunity, both from a professional but also from a personal perspective, which, especially it being New York, not a lot of people are able to work in New York, and it still amazes me. And sometimes in the last month, I don't really I don't really live it enough. For example, yesterday I went to an event of Workday in the Empire State Building on the 67th floor. Like, being able to go to an iconic building like the Empire State Building to an event and just doing that as a day-to-day job is like something I really need to stand still enough and to really grasp it.
So the vibe is real.
Yeah, the vibe is real, but it's there is so much work to do that you often forget that you're doing it in an amazing world, in an amazing city, and it's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah. So and reflecting on your career so far, Jonathan, what's the most important lesson you've learned that you would want to pass on to others?
Good question. I would say don't optimize for the short term, especially when looking at a career. Like, I'm building out a career. It's something that I see some of not our employees at TechWolf, but some people do, is that they want a career and they want everything as of day one. I myself, I try to invest and do stuff I really like to do, and that I believe will like materialize in the long run instead of the short term. For example, when I joined TechWolf, coming from team leader, I joined TechWolf as first non-commercial or non-technical employee. So I was ordering coffee, I was doing office work, I was doing my finance work, of course. And before TechWolf, I was managing a team of 5 to 7 people in team leader, and I was not doing any operational work anymore. But for me, like, the chance of TechWolf was, and the opportunity at TechWolf was big enough. And I was okay with maybe on the short term investing a bit more or doing work that I don't really want to do anymore. But I never thought it would bring me to New York, and now I'm here. So it's definitely worth it. From my perspective, is not to optimize too much for the short term, but do the things that you believe will have a big impact on your long-term career.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
yeah, no, definitely. And you just told me like, okay, I'm working in this amazing city, but there's so much work to do, and I have to make sure that I enjoy what I'm doing. Again, you're in an important position. They're counting on you to lead the New York office. So how do you find some personal space? Some how do you find the balance between working in the most vibrant city in the world, probably, and still trying to keep your head balanced and make sure that there's a healthy balance between professional and personal life?
Yeah, I think um, making sure that you work with people you really like helps a lot. For example, we're living together with 4 employees now in an Airbnb. So we're working together and living together. If you don't, yeah. So as of I think end of October, everybody is moving out to their own apartments. But in the first month and a half, we're now living together in an Airbnb. If you don't like the people you work with, then it's very hard to work with them day in, day out, and to really go 200% for your work. Next to that, it's of course important to have enough balance between work and personal life. For me, it's about making time to exercise. I like to sport a lot. It's about creating healthy habits. I go for a walk with my dog every morning, and it's really time for me to zoom out a bit and to not stress too much about work. And I'm fortunate to have a big group of friends that are not in the same startup or tech world. So if we do things together, we don't talk about work that often. Yeah, it's important to disconnect enough, but with jobs that require a lot of time and effort, it's especially important to do that with people you really like.
Yeah, and what inspires you outside of TechWolf? So what's really your thing on inspiration, and how do you keep your creativity alive?
Yeah, I try. So outside of TechWolf, I try not to do too much work-related stuff. I'm not the person who will read a lot of books that are non-fiction and like those kind of things because I like to sport and exercise a lot. I like to be in the nature and outdoors, and that's where I can really recharge and find the inspiration to move on. Um, Next to that, and that's also more professional, I try to invest a lot in network and making sure that you're not too focused in your silo of your company, but spend enough time with people in different contexts, in different type of companies, and understand what challenges they have and how they deal with challenges. Because a lot of these things can be very inspiring, like a bit of the outside in view. And I always see it with new employees coming into a company. Like the first months, they can often create such a big impact because they still have the outside in view. Um, Compared to after working for years in the same organization, you're a bit more siloed in your way of thinking and aligned with the organization, which of course is important, but the outside in view can be very inspiring as well.
Yeah, and maybe just circling back, Jonathan, because you talked about the culture of TechWolf, and that you really that you really thought about. Okay, we can't move too fast, so you're trying to move the culture of TechWolf to the US using your Belgian people, really, but I can imagine, because we're Belgians, we're known to be modest, or at least we're not Americans, definitely not New Yorkers. So is that something that you consider an asset, or do you feel like, okay, I really should step up here because I have to leave my Belgian modesty behind?
Yeah, I think there is a big difference between copying the culture and living the values of the company. And I think, and I also make the same mistake in wording a lot when talking about culture. We won't have the same culture here in New York than we have in Belgium. It's just not possible, and we also see it with London and Belgium. Like it's a different type of people, different environment you work with. So it's not that we want to create exactly the same culture here in New York than
No, but you want to
in
instill the
Belgium.
same values.
Exactly. And that's an exercise that we're still doing as an organization. What does it mean to live those values? What is important for us? And right now we're hiring the first people here in New York, and we really test them on the value fit for the organization, even more than people we would hire today in Belgium, because the people we are hiring now here in New York will be the people that will hire other people in the future. So, for example, a vacancy that is top priority for us right now is the head of talent here in the US. It's a super important role for us because this person will hire the next 10, 20, 30 people here in the US. And he or she will need to make sure that those people are the best people in the markets that we can hire. And therefore, like overemphasizing on the values is very important for us today to make sure that the long-term effect of maybe if we would hire now a perfect talent acquisition person, but who looks at values a bit different than our company, then that will translate in all the people that this person will hire as well.
Yeah, and if you want to, obviously, but what kind of values are you looking for, or which are the ones you want to transfer?
Yeah, we identified 5 values. We have build a rocket ship. It's all a bit themed. Build a rocket ship, aim for the moon, run with the pack. Those are the 3 core values. And then we have more behavioral values, open up and care deeply. And like I can spend a lot of time about talking about these values, but all of them are important for us. And the easiest ones are open up and one with the pack for me, because those are things that you really can assess quite thoroughly. Open up is all about being transparent. We ask candidates about what is the feedback you got in your career that really was hard to receive, but really had a very big impact on your career. And that's not something that candidates, or not all candidates, will be as transparent about. But it are ways for us to really assess those values.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very healthy approach. We have our values as well. So, and because you have to, collaboration is important. Preferably you work together for years and years. So that's something that we also very deeply value. Talking about collaboration, if there was any partner or company or individual in the world you could partner with, who would it be, or what company would it be?
I think it's not an area that really inspires me, but that I don't know a lot of today is and it's not really a company or a person. It's a sports team, and especially sports teams where they are focusing a lot on the intersection between sport performance and science. For example, in cycling, a team like the Visma team, I think it's very inspirational of what they have done in the past and that they're still doing. And especially the intersection between like sports and the passion for the sport, combining that with the science behind it, is something that for me is really interesting. And right now I'm fully committed to the tech world. But if I would want to do something else, then it might be more in that world, especially being able to combine your passion or my passion for cycling with my job would be great.
Yeah, and it touches on what you on your job actually, because those kind of sports teams, they also use their own AI models. I think it's something that we'll see in the future. Will be used everywhere. Personally, I'm a big NFL fan, so I'm kind of jealous.
There you go.
Because you're in the city with 2 NFL teams. They're not really good at the moment, but still, you can go. But if you look at those kind of organizations as well, they also try to implement every little bit that can help optimize their organization. And I think that's also what TechWolf is trying to do, and to make sure that everything is in place to make sure that your organization is the best it can possibly be.
Exactly.
Okay, well, Jonathan, I think it was a really interesting talk. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I think it's your day still has to start.
Yes.
So I hope you have a great day over there, a very productive day. All the best of luck with TechWolf, and we're very proud to work for a company such as yours. And obviously, you're also one of the Belgian companies that we are looking for to keep our name great in the future.
Perfect. Thank you, Steven.
Okay, thank
Enjoy
you so
your
much,
afternoon.
Jonathan.